provided by our attorney, and the resolution will just allow the governing board to give me some authority in case that there is any changes that need to be made regarding our school, the function of our schools during this COVID-19. And we may need to do an addenda to this resolution because we already had this done, passed it out to all of you, posted it on agenda, and there was a new executive order that came out yesterday by the governor, which is not in here. So I don't know how you want to do that, Mr. Bahrain, or?
What is the order, the difference on the starting of school?
Yes.
On the date,
basically, it would be the same. So there would be another paragraph saying, whereas executive order, the governor executive order 2024 has pushed back the start of the school year to August 17th with all its provisions and all that.
Well,
So
let's do this.
Okay.
Members of the board, have you read the resolution, so we don't need to read it?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ramos and Mr. Sabal, are you all right with the resolution as presented?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, then let's do this. We can approve this resolution with any language that's required to update it according to any executive order of the governor.
Okay.
That will be the motion.
Okay.
So when it's adopted, then you have the prerogative of adding whatever language specifically in accordance with the executive order of the governor. Okay?
That's fine.
All right, will that work for you?
Yes, that will work.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve with that addition.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second,
Second motion.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion?
I want to ask a question. Well, with the new directive that he gave, August 17th, wasn't that what we were planning all along?
Yeah, so we've been ahead of the game, Dr. Ed. When, as I said to you, our team has been working, for the last month, and we had already that in plan. We had already our agenda for August 17th, and then the order came out yesterday afternoon. So,
Okay. Then one other thing, my wife is very teacher, but she said, well, how about when are the teachers going to go in? I said, well, they have a contract, right?
yes,
So they're going to go in when the contract
August,
says.
yes, and I'll
Okay.
explain all that with the approval of the calendar if you approve it.
But there's a special provision for that too, that you'll
Yes.
get to in a minute with the contract. Just to be clear before we have the vote, is that in the way I saw that executive order as it was again this morning and late last night, was that it deals specifically with the opening of school.
Yes,
So we wanna be
face-to-face instruction.
Right, so we want to make sure that that's clear in the motion, that she has the prerogative to adjust to whatever date specifically about that executive order. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item B, discussion action on the approval of 212 calendar for school year 2020, 2021. Ms. Samaniego.
Okay. So lots of discussion, lots of thought went into this proposal. I had mentioned last week that we were looking at an option of presenting a 212 calendar. And the reason we call it a 212 calendar is because there are 2 days of instruction, 1 day of distance learning without any kids at school, that being Wednesday, and then 2 days of instruction. This calendar would remove all of the Thursday early release days that we had embedded in the calendar that we have currently adopted by the board. And the sole purpose of the Wednesday would be to allow for schools to have a thorough cleaning day without any students on campus. The staff would be expected to be on campus and work that day and take guidance from the principals, professional development, staff meetings, cleaning, lesson planning, grading, and actually having office hours for the distance learning day children. So they would be required to communicate with kids either through the Google Classroom or any mode of instruction that we're going to choose to do on that Wednesday. So this proposal, we've been working on it for quite some time, and so Alma and I worked over the weekend in coming up with the dates of start time. So we either had the 18th of August or we had the 17th, and we created 3 different proposals, and then we took it for a vote with our subcommittees, so the elementary, the middle school, and the high school group. And unanimously, 2 was what was voted. And two, would allow us, without knowing that the governor was going to push back the date, we had already made that decision ourselves to bring back to you for approval. And we had, the start date of this calendar is August 17th, surprisingly, so we were on the right track. This would allow us to push back, and it's a total of 7 instructional days. Normally, our kids would have returned to school on August the 6th. That's on a Thursday. So their new start date would be Monday, August the 17th. Counting from the 6th through the 14th, that would be 7 instructional days that we would be required to make up according to the 180-day instructional calendar required by ADE. With this new executive order, there will be some provisions and waivers coming from ADE and State Board of Education, and they have until August the 31st to communicate that and get that approved. And I think what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to reduce the number of calendar days now, because all schools cannot have face-to-face instruction until the 17th. We do not plan on having distance learning starting on the 6th. We were just going to utilize those days before kids get there to really work with the staff, develop our plans, make sure our schools and campuses are ready, our classrooms are set up with less number of desks and all facing in one direction and all of that stuff. So that would be the start date for teachers would be normally on August the 4th. And I did get legal advice before even moving forward with this, and Ms. Pardee did review our teacher contracts, and our teacher contracts have a start date and an end date. So as long as we stayed within those 2 dates and added more days to the teacher work days, then we are okay as far as not having to pay our teachers additional money, because we are staying within those instructional days. Normally in the past, teachers' contracts would say a total number of days. You know, back, I think when Mr. Lindeman and I taught, we were 183 days, for example. So those contracts, the language has changed over the course of the years, and so that will allow us to add the 7 instructional days to the teacher's work calendar within the calendar that I'm presenting to you right here. So those 7 instructional days are, we're removing fall break. Okay, so teachers would only get that Monday that is a given holiday on October the 12th. In addition, go to September. September 25th was a day that we had given to the staff and students, and that was normally a Fair Friday. So we had that day off, so we removed it. So that's 4 or 5 days there. November, Thanksgiving break, we had 3 days embedded as days off, so we removed the 25th. That's an additional day. And December stayed the same. Our groups and our teachers felt that 2-week break was important for them, especially because we end our semester on December the 23rd. So that for baking and gift wrapping and all those good stuff, good things, it was going to be hard for our staff. And then March, spring break stays the same. We didn't remove any of those days. And then April, the spring holiday usually is the Friday before Easter and the Monday after Easter. So we removed the Monday after Easter. And those days will allow us to have those 7 instructional days for students. Now, if ADE comes with a new guidance or a new waiver that will allow us not to fulfill the 180 days, then we may be able to give some of these days back, because we don't no longer have to stick to the 180 instructional days. Okay, so if they do that, then we will hear more from them probably at the end of August, beginning September, because they do have until the 31st. Now, we already talked about teachers, and that it doesn't affect our pay, it doesn't affect our budget, and having to pay them extra additional money. Our support staff, and I don't know, Mr. Bahrain, if you will agree with me, but there is not much. The executive order mentions that teachers' pay will not be affected. They didn't mention anything about support staff. I know there were many questions from different superintendents regarding support staff. because what we planned on doing is pushing back the start date of our support staff. So normally support staff begins on a day before kids get there. So August the 5th was their start date. Obviously, if I have them start that soon, then I have to either pay them because their wage notices are hourly and they have a start date, they don't have an end date. So what I did in talking about this and getting feedback from my staff, we agreed that possibly bringing them back on August the 11th would give us 4 additional days to work with the support staff, because if you know, as you've heard, support staff is going to be key in making the school year flexible, run smooth, helping us with temperature checks and social distancing and all of that. So we need 4 days with the support staff in order to train them, to develop some plans. And bringing them a day before kids get there is not going to be possible. So I am working with payroll and Alma to come up with those 4 additional days within the calendar that will allow them to have those 4 days off somewhere in there so that it doesn't affect us in the budget. Because if we do not do that, then we're going to have to pay 4 additional days for all the support staff that works on campus.
Mr. Bray,
Yes.
just a your question on a great report. I don't understand terms sometimes. Like, who would be support staff?
So support staff, you have all of your instructional aides, you have your health aides, you have your school nurses that start working on that first day or the day before, you have your school security, anybody that's not a 12-month support staff, so an office staff. Everybody that works directly with the kids in the start of the school year. So those are the employees that would be affected by having to come and start on August 11th. Now, the governor did say yesterday that no staff is going to be affected with pay and that they're going to be supporting us. That is not detailed in this executive order. ASBA also provided some verbiage and summary of what they think this executive order means. And so I suspect more information is going to come regarding paying of our staff.
Let me just interject here, because the board needs to understand this, and so does the general public. The community needs to understand this. You did well by clarifying that there's a difference between support staff and the 12-month employees. So you need to explain about the 12-month employees as well. But the thing that's important to note is that anytime an executive order is issued, it's always with the best information that the governor's staff gives him up to that point. And of course, the governor's staff is advised by ADE, although he does have an educational advisor in his office. But remember that anything that he does is basically coming from ADE, all right, because those are the experts. The point being that this thing could change even before the 17th.
Yes.
Because there's a major component in there, and that's the legislature. You know, if the governor calls the legislature back into emergency session, then they might have to deal with some of these issues that Anna was talking about. Are we going to pay those people more? Because you always have to consider, and we don't want to lesson here in school finance, but it's important that if those people work more, and your budget has already been approved for X amount of days based on what the best information you had, then the legislature might have to step in and say, it's going to be okay for them to do this or do that, because there's some things that are further reaching than the State Board of Education, all right?
Exactly.
The point being this, is that this whole schedule could change before the 17th.
Yes.
All right, so we need to be aware of that. The other thing is, I want to make sure that we're the teachers represented, we're our local teachers represented in the conversations regarding, this is going to be quite daunting to them. When they see what's going to, and I'll tell you, I'm really feeling for the teachers. I mean, you know, they're going to have all these kids coming in, and, you know, we're looking at adults dealing with kids that are hopefully strong immune systems and healthy. But our teachers are really going to be
Impacted by
exposed.
this, yes. And let me tell you, every committee, and it's impossible to have the input of everybody, right? But we did have a teacher survey as well, a teacher and staff survey. So every staff member for DUSD was surveyed on returning back to school. And I'm not going to share that today, but I'm going to share the results of that survey on the 7th board meeting, because I think their thoughts are also important. There is an overwhelming concern, obviously, about reopening and coming back and having to, instruct kids face to face. Right now, and we can go into that discussion at the next agenda item, I did have teacher input, I had parent input, and I had student input at all three of the subcommittees. So that is our task force for reopening schools. Also, we met, not every principal is on the task force, but every principal had feedback from the subcommittees on the work development that we've had. It is going to obviously impact teachers in the sense that those days, they used to have them off. If by any chance there is something that comes from ADE with the 180-day reduction, then we can certainly go back. And I think, Mr. Bahrain, I think with the resolution, it allows me to make those changes. Or
Right.
would you like for me to bring back to the board a calendar? Because things are rapidly changing. We didn't know that the governor was going to go into do another press release yesterday and issue another executive order. I was in meetings yesterday, and my meeting got canceled because immediately they said the governor is going to speak right now and something about a new executive order. So things are changing, and our date of August 17th was something that DUSD had already thought about, planned for, and was prepared to do. And that is what our recommendation is. Next agenda item, we can talk about what our plan is and what direction our governing board would like us to take.
Well, let's clarify that to make sure that you understand that the resolution and the way it was adopted gave you the authority and the prerogative to do whatever you thought within the parameters of the executive order.
Yes.
How it relates to the opening of school, and then any subcategory which is affected by that. But if it gets to be something very significant
then-
about employment or things
no,
like that, then
I
you
bring
you
it
bring
back
it
to the
back to
board.
the board.
Yes,
Okay, so
absolutely.
that answers that question.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So in a sense, this is the calendar, and the calendar doesn't talk about AB or AM or PM, that's the next item. But this would allow us to have 180 instructional days, as required by ADE as of now. Teachers coming to work earlier and allowing us to train them and really prepare for the start of the school year. Our end date is still May 26th, with graduation on May 28th. So conferences, we're going to do everything that normally would be taken up on an early release date. We're going to get it done on Wednesday so that we don't have to take up any more instructional time from the
Okay,
calendar.
so we need a motion and an approval on that item.
On the
right?
calendar.
And then, considering board members,
Mm-hmm.
that there's going to be a fluctuation possibly that she's going to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the other thing that's important, and I think that we need to understand, is that you have to make sure, I think, that when everybody comes back, and Dr. Gomez was asking about support staff, because they're essential, they're vital,
Mm-hmm.
but that they have all their duties designated to them when they come back, so that it's not helter-skelter. They come
no.
in and say, well, what are we going to do? You don't have any,
Mm-hmm.
it's like saying what's my job description now? What do I do now? But the job description is very flexible as far as what the duties and responsibilities are due as dictated by the district and the prevailing circumstances, okay? So you're going to have everything ready
Yes.
for them when they come back. You know who's going to do the ones that we talked about at the last meeting.
Yes,
Who's going to do what? Entertain a motion to approve that item. by
I
Mr.
move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman,
I second.
second by Mr.
Sabal.
Sabal. Any discussion?
Yes.
I just,
Dr. Gomez.
Go ahead. No, you first.
I hope this isn't a silly question, but you're talking about the support staff and things like that, and instead of starting on August 4th, they're going to start later with the teachers and things. Wouldn't that have already been budgeted in, so we don't have to worry about
Well,
extra pay?
what's budgeted in is the support staff works 189 days. So we have that budgeted in for 189 days by starting on the 5th. But now, we're going to push back their start date, not only to come back a day before kids get there, but 4 days before. So I have to work within the calendar and our payroll to find 4 days within the calendar so that they don't have to work. Do you see what I'm saying? So swap the 4
Oh.
days coming in
But-
with 4 days because
But we
they-
could put them to work then and just keep the same days and have them do the extra work that's.
So
gonna
in
be
order
paid.
for this not to affect the budget and us having to find extra funding, which right now we know it's going to be tight, I have to stay within the 189 days of their work
But that's what I-
contract.
But that's what I mean.
Uh-huh.
If they start at the same time and put in their 189 days, then we don't have to find any extra funding.
Yes.
And there's plenty of work to get done.
Exactly, but then that means for 4 days, they won't be there. Sometime during the calendar, if I bring them in on the 5th, for example, right? So they're coming in on the 5th, they're working 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days without children. So that means that they'd have to end their contract 8 days before, and we know that the support staff is essential and are needed there when kids are there.
Okay.
So that's why it wouldn't be convenient to bring him in that early, but we still need to bring him early enough to be able to really work and create a plan of action of how they're going to support kids, because we most likely will have to have IAs doing some custodial duties. We may have some bus drivers assisting with maintenance or, vice versa. We don't know what the situation is going to really look like at the start of the school year, but we know that our staff will be changing some responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
And administratively, again, and I think it's very important, especially for the principals as well, because they're the ones that are going to be dealing with all these people, is that you're going to have instances where you just mentioned it again, that you might have some people doing some things that are outside the
Outside what
realm
they're-
of what their normal duties are, that the principals have the authority through you
Yes.
and the board edict, that and there's always going to be somebody that's going to say, that's not in my job description. I wasn't hired to do that. Well, then you deal with those individually and just remind them that the superintendent, through the wage notice and the job description for the support staff, have the prerogative to assign them whatever duties are deemed relevant or needed by the district at the discretion of the administration. And
Yes.
that goes for the principals as well.
Exactly.
Okay? Because you're going to have somebody who's going to come up and say, that's not my job. I'm a
Yeah.
teacher's aide. You're asking me to do this? They need to be told right up front so that you don't end up, the principals are going to have a lot of responsibility. On a daily basis. It's going to be very difficult. I'm sure there's going to be instances that it come up, and this is new for everybody. But in the traditional educational administration of a building, it's going to be difficult because things are not going to be regular.
They're not
as-
going to be traditional anymore.
Exactly. All right. So, Dr. Gomez.
Okay. You made a very good point that the people, a plan has to be developed for when those people come in, that they know what they're gonna be asked to do. And I'm just thinking, if you need help in that situation, couldn't that be considered part of curriculum? In other words, of what they're gonna be doing to get the classes ready?
Well, curriculum, are you talking about support staff?
No, I'm
You're talking about
talking even
teachers.
about the department itself, helping her come up with the different things so that they know what they're going to be doing when they come in.
Right.
Yes, and we will have that, Dr. Ed. My purpose of having this special board meeting was, number one, approve a calendar, so that we now know we're starting on a date, we're ending on a date, this is what our calendar looks like. Now, we've done a lot of the legwork. My admin team has done a lot of the legwork. The subcommittees have done a lot of these plans. Now it's time to start putting each school's plan. There are going to be some procedures and protocols that are going to be consistent across DUSD. No matter what school you go to, you're going to have a mask. You're going to, visitors are not going to be allowed, things like that. Then it comes down to the real work of, okay, what are our instructional IAs going to do? Let's say we were to start online. Well, there's not going to be any kids, but what is the role of an instructional IA? What is the role of a security guard going to look like if we start online or if we ever have to go online? So every school is going to develop their own roadmap to reopening, I guess, document, and it's a lot of similarities between DUSD and all the schools, but then some schools will be a little bit different pertaining to their own sites. So yes, departments, the coaches are going to assist with curriculum. The
yes.
principals have their leadership teams, and they're drafting up their plans. So a lot of work for this non-traditional school year.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and then another word to the wise is that if you have any employee that becomes very reluctant to do whatever you ask them to do, or there's any question about whether they should do or they shouldn't, that's the reason I think it's important for the board to make this statement in support of the administration, is that you don't want to run the risk of having somebody tell you to do something, and of course, with all of the unexpectancies that are still out there that that we can't even imagine now. But the best advice to the employee would be to do it, and then if there's a question about it, then ask the question later, because you certainly don't want an employee, because of all of this, to put themselves in the role of being insubordinate.
Insubordinate, yes.
Okay, because that could bring on ramifications that
Yes.
that you don't want to be dealing with. The board doesn't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with it. We don't want to see somebody in here and say that we had the custodian in and we asked him to do this and he said no. And now that's why I think it merits discussion right now, so that they know that the feeling and philosophy of the board is that do it unless it's totally unreasonable, and then ask the question later. But don't put yourself in a position to be insubordinate because they're asking you to do something that you don't feel is in your job description or something you weren't hired for, okay?
Yeah.
And that's especially for you people, and I would advise the principals the same way. So
Exactly.
we don't want to be dealing with those things, especially now. All right, any more discussion on this item? We have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
We need a roll call, right?
Yes.
So let's have it.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes,
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item
see,
C, right?
Yes.
Discussion action on the approval of the hybrid schedules for all Douglas Unified School District number 27 schools. Ms. Sarniego.
Okay. I have invited today, as I said, we have 3 subcommittees going all at once and by grade band. So I have the high school subcommittee, have the middle school, and I have the elementary. So for every one of those committees, I do have a lead person, and I've asked them to come because they're the ones that have been working with their committees alongside members of the leadership team, myself, Mrs. Cox, and Mrs. Walker, in trying to come up with plans. What we gave you as background information is very general, basic information regarding what their schedules would look like. I'm going to allow them to present each one of their plans briefly, and then get into a discussion of where we are today with the sentiment from the staff, the sentiments from the community, the stress from my own admin team, the recommendations from my own admin team. And there is a sense of let's go hybrid, let's start online. And so it is a very difficult decision to make. And whether that decision is made today, I at least want to approve. We know that there were 4 scenarios that we could implement. Scenario number 1 was brick and mortar, get back to school as normal as possible. We know we can't do that. Number 2 is a hybrid schedule, which we are presenting today, and that is sort of a blended learning. So while you have half of the kids coming in for face-to-face instruction one day, the other half is staying at home doing distance learning, and then you swap. And option number 3 would be to start online. And so with an idea that you have a date in mind so that you could go back into the hybrid or the brick and mortar schedule. So DUSD is prepared to do 2 and 3 and 4. 4 would be at the closure of the governor. We would close schools back up again. But our committees have done a phenomenal work. A lot of thought process and a lot of long hours have gone into this, and every day hey, I thought about this idea, late at night, and I'm always getting calls and feedback. So let's start with the elementary group. Miss Corey Moen, she is our lead she's one of our leads from the principal group for the elementary group. And they are proposing, all 3 grade levels for DUSD are proposing a hybrid schedule.
Can you guys hear me okay with the mess?
Yes.
Good afternoon, school board. So the elementary, like Ms. Samaniego has spoke, is that we are proposing the A-B schedule with half our students on an A and the other half on a B day, and then with our Wednesday being our online learning day. We've gone round and round about, I know there was a discussion about AM and PM. We've talked about that, but after speaking with everyone, we felt that the A-B schedule would provide us the most instructional time and to really help our younger students out, because we are about to have our kinders in first grade who are not very good at school until they're really taught and got procedures down in place. So we thought that having them in A-B and having them split will give us the opportunity to do the distance learning, because if you've ever been in elementary school, keeping kids apart from each other is going to be our biggest challenge, and this way this provides us with time with the kids to really show them the procedures, and also gives us time for the instruction.
Did you hear from the teachers, from your teachers? Did you informally or formally talk to them to see how they felt about that?
Yes, we had a member from every school, had a teacher representative in our groups. We also had members of DEA there. I spoke a lot to my own staff about what AM, PM, and AB, and we kind of, all the principals went back and shared both scenarios with their teachers. They came back with lots of questions, lots of concerns, and overall it was they felt that A and B would be a lot better for us, because a lot of our concerns with the AM, PM, especially in the elementary, is having time to sanitize between the 2 groups, making sure kids get picked up on time, getting dropped off on time, and we felt with the A and B that would provide us more time with the students and give us more time to really sanitize and make sure we have time to teach the procedures to the kids, as well as in the instruction part.
Was there any strong opposition from the other end of the continuum from teachers? Did you hear any strong
No,
opposition? Okay.
they were really good with the A and B schedule.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lindemann.
Mr. President, by A and B, do you mean Mondays A, Tuesdays B, Thursdays A, Fridays B?
Yes, so
and
it'll
Wednesdays-
always, if you're an A
It's
day,
always
it's
gonna be that
always
way.
Monday, always Thursdays, always Tuesdays, always Friday.
So that's going to be static, and Wednesdays is going to be
And then
online.
Wednesdays and online learning, and we've talked a little bit about our online learning in the elementary, because unlike middle school and high school, kids can't just get onto the computer and be very successful in it. So a lot of our conversations we're talking about recording teachers videotaping as they taught, so those students who do not want to come back can actually watch maybe live or recorded session of them teaching other students. Kids can refer back to it. We talked a lot about our new Pearson reading program has a workbook. So we talked about maybe that being something they do at home for the online portion, where the teacher leads it through video and they follow along at home, so that their online portion included learning, but it wasn't so much self-learning, because as you know, with our elementary students, we really need to make sure that we support them really well, and that we can't expect them just to get on a program and be able to do it. They need a lot more support from us.
And then also, what does staggered times due to temperature check mean?
So one of our conversation, and because the way our elementaries are set up, we have, a lot of our elementaries are very differently set up, and our conversation was if we could stagger time, it would give us time to take temperatures, if that was is that the route we were going to, if we were going to be screening students, that would provide us time to screen the students and get them to where they need to be before the next group comes. Because like I said, elementary students, it's really hard to say, stay 6 feet away. So if we had them staggered, I think we leave, it's a 10-minute increments that we wanted to stagger them. It would all be before 8 o'clock, so even parents who worked, they would still be able to drop off students on before they have to go to work. But by providing the stagger, that would allow not so many crowding for drop-off and for pickup. Personally, at my school, we take up a block, and when we have pickup and drop off, we kind of crowd everything, and parents kind of bunch up everywhere. So by providing the stagger, it would allow us to get one group out and then the next group up, so it would help with the social distancing of everybody. I know Joe Carlson has similar issues with pickup and drop off because of the formation of their school. So as elementary, we felt that staggering would help us with the drop off and the pickup, so that we weren't. It would help with the social distancing and with the not.
But how is that going to work?
Excuse me?
How is the staggering going to work? When kids are come, they're dropped off, and then what do you do?
So where they would be, we had about a 10-minute stagger. We had, for example, if it's kinder and first is our first group, they would be dropped off.
Oh, you mean grade level?
Yeah, by grade level.
Oh, I thought you meant individual kids.
No.
What do you-
No. It'd be by grade level. And we also took in consideration families. So families, we would have a certain place for those families. I'm a bus school, so I would have to find a place for my bus students to kind of wait until their teachers' rooms are open for they can go in there. And those are little things that different sites will have to figure out. But no, we were staggering by grade levels.
Okay.
And some of us spoke of maybe not just always being, it's not the same grade levels everywhere, because at certain schools, grade levels share hallways, so maybe the first group is kinder and fifth, so you don't crowd one hallway. And at my school, maybe my first one is second and third because they're in different hallways. So the staggering was kind of left up to the school and also the makeup of the students there.
Okay. And then it says here on the list, parents required to bring students to school. Grandparents bring kids to school, aunts and uncles bring kids to schools.
And so that's something we didn't know if we were allowed or can do. A lot of our we've talked a lot about worst case scenarios. What happens when a student gets sick at the very beginning of the day? Sometimes it's very hard to reach parents. It's very hard to find family members. So we were asking if it was possible, as we screen kids, that parents drop. If it's a grandparent, whoever's on the emergency contact, whoever's permission, waits there. We check the kid. If they're fine, we let them in. And if they're not, we say, we're sorry, you're showing a temperature. Here's all the online packets. Our secretary or our parent liaison will contact you in a few minutes to let you know where to go onto the website to get all the stuff the student needs. And we'll keep being in contact with you till the child feels better, so that we don't allow the child on campus at the time, so we don't provide that opportunity for him to get other people sick. It was, but we're not sure if that's something we can do or we can ask for. It was a scenario that came up a lot of because sometimes people drop off their children sick, and we were trying to figure a way so that wouldn't happen. So we felt that if we could screen them, and parents would have to sign, drop them off and sign them. If they were sick, it was easy to say, you need to take them home. We'll get in touch with you. We'll help you get everything you need to get to do home, to work at home until they feel better. And this way we don't infect any other students.
So you propose to have whoever is in charge of picking up or dropping off sign a card and make sure that they're on there. And then you're going to have essentially them signed in
Yes.
each day?
And that's a conversation, like I said, all these different details and protocols and procedures, all those have to be still developed and worked on so that there is consistency amongst the schools. And I think what Mr. Lindemann was really talking about was parents, just the word parents.
Parents. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be guardian, parent,
And it's
whoever,
whoever's on
'cause-
your emergency
yes,
contact.
uh-huh.
It's not just.
And sometimes, Ms. Moen, there's family members that drop off kids that are not on the emergency card. And so we couldn't restrict or restrain or, from Mr. Bahrain dropping off,
Right.
a godson or
And-
something
and
like
it's not
that.
restricting them, it's
Yeah.
just to allow us to catch that before we get, and if it's not something
Yeah.
we can do, then we'll work out another plan.
Yeah.
But it was
Okay.
just a question that came out and a possible solution that we had come up with.
Okay, well, thank you.
One
Yeah.
question. So, because I was looking at it here and I couldn't find the elementary schedule. So, the Friday, that's going to be a full day. And tennis, okay, you're going to have A and B, right? A and then B, and then Thursday and Friday. So Friday is going to be a full day. The same
Yes,
length of
A
the
day,
day as
B day.
Thursday.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, A day, B day, A day, B day, oh, sorry, yeah, it's the same thing. So it gives the students 2 days with their teacher, face to face.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you did on that.
Thank you.
She's representing all the elementaries,
She's,
right?
yes, she's one of our leads. I have 3 principals as leads, but obviously we can't have all of them here today. So they've met, I don't know how many times, but they have had teacher input, parent input from all the sites. So their BAL schedule, and the reason you don't see a schedule for them, Dr. Ed, is because they're 8 to 3. You know, they don't have a schedule like the middle school or the high school. They are already working on how their schedules internally would look like, and those are the details that we have to still work out.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the hard work you did there.
Ms.
Thank you.
Moen, just one more question. Just the feeling tone of your committee is to move forward August 17th with a hybrid model or online?
It's, elementary kind of goes both ways. We see the reason for the online, you know, it would protect our little kid, our very young students, it would protect our teachers, but we also see it as our little kids don't know how to do the online until we teach them. And while our parents are great, not all of them are very computer literate, and so we kind of worry about if we start online, we're going to need to support them a lot in how to do that part online because they won't see us face to face. I spoke to a couple kinder teachers this morning, and they said they've never met their kids because they're coming in fresh, and they're kind of like, if we start online, they're going to have to do a lot of work on trying to introduce themselves through videos and making sure they get a hold of parents. So, online, it kind of goes both ways. They see the online as safe, more safety, and it would help, especially because you think of little kids and the social distancing. But without starting them face to face, it's not as easy as middle school and high school. And we say, oh, get on Google Classroom. Little kids don't know what Google Classroom is. They don't know how to manipulate those things until we teach them. So that will probably be our most difficult part with them.
Okay, members of the board, any more questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Ms. Melissa Rodriguez is one of the leads, along with Ms. Deb Herrera and the 2 admin on that group. And they are also, again, it's a hybrid model. And I'll let her explain a little bit about what their schedule looks like.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bahrain and board members. So very much like the elementary, we are proposing an A-B schedule. So very similar in the sense that Monday would be an A day, Tuesday a B day, Wednesday would be a teacher work day, students work online, and then of course the custodial sanitation day. Thursday we would have the A day, and then Friday we would be on the B day. So just keep in mind is that when students are not at school, they are on online learning. So basically the AB schedule, you would have 3 online days and 2 face-to-face days. So I just wanted to clarify that. So basically students would still be receiving 5 instructional days. So just like the traditional schedule, they'll have the 5 instructional days Monday through Friday. Students, of course, will be divided into 2 groups. So say that at Rayburn I have 440 kids, 220 would be the A students, 220 would be the B students. At Huber, they're at about 500 kids, so it'd be 250 A students, 250 B students. Students will be divided into cohort groups, and this is where the schedule, where Mrs. Samaniego was explaining, elementary doesn't have a schedule. Students are with teachers, with one teacher all day long. So for us, of course, we would continue to provide a schedule. At RBMS, we're looking at a 6-period schedule. And at Paul Huber, because they do have more students, they would have a 7-period schedule. What we have omitted is the RTI class, but it's not that there's no RTI. The RTI is now embedded into the class periods. So in order to minimize, once they get to middle school, students switch classes. So to avoid the chaos and the mixing and the congregating, we decided that it would be best to develop a schedule where kids travel in cohort groups. So based on our numbers, we're looking at about 12 to 15 students per cohort that would be traveling. So they would all have the same first period class. They'd travel to their second period class together, to their third, fourth, etc. That way, there's no socializing between classes. 'Cause, you know, once they get to middle school, it's all about their social life. And it's going to be probably the hardest thing. So Ms. Moen said, you know, little kids, you know, they're all over each other. Well, middle school kids, they're all over each other in another way. But we won't get into that conversation. So kids are very social, you know, so that's going to be the hardest thing. But we thought if we let them travel in cohorts, the teachers would really have to manage the transition times. So with that being said, our school sites are kind of set up to where, for example, I'll use Ray Brain as an example. All my 8th grade teachers are in the lower level of my main building. So it's not like they have to travel from the gym to the cafeteria to upstairs to downstairs. All my 8th grade teachers are within the same building and in the same level. So the plan would be that whatever teacher has their plan period, that teacher obviously has the vacant room. So when that bell rings, we would have a rotation. So that would be the first class to be filled because it's empty. And then so that would cause a domino effect. Now we would have another empty classroom. So we would transition that way. Because we did talk about having a traveling teacher versus having kids switch classes. But knowing everything that teachers need to give quality instruction, it would be impossible for teachers to have to carry everything they need with them from class to class. And, you know, I will say my 6th grade is my only group where I have teachers upstairs and downstairs and in the gym. So there's no way they'd be able to carry things up and downstairs in order to give our kids the best quality education. So therefore, that is why we decided to go ahead and let the kids switch classes. Any questions so far?
I have one.
Yes.
Okay, so at the gym, and this is just for my information, the gym, do you still use the classroom upstairs?
Yes.
Do you have one downstairs?
Yes. We have 2 classrooms upstairs. We have one on the gym level floor, and we actually have 2 classrooms in the basement of the gym, and they're all used.
Okay.
Okay? So with that being said, to also avoid large groups of kids being together, lunch and breakfast would be served in the classrooms. They would not be going to the cafeteria. So therefore, that is where utilizing our support staff is going to be key, because they won't just be on our cafeteria workers or our custodians. Our IAs are going to have to help us facilitate the breakfast and the lunch in order to be able to get all those breakfasts and lunches to the classrooms delivered, cleaned up, and then picked up and brought back to the cafeteria. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
How are you going to organize the cohorts?
So actually, good question. I utilize my leadership team for everything. I never make any decisions on my own. So incoming 6th graders, we still haven't got to know. So we might have to reach out to 5th grade teachers to kind of get input from them as to how to best divide the kids. But my 6th and 7th grade teachers, they've already created my class list for 7th and 8th. So they did a really good job mixing kids, with the exception of the 8th grade algebra class. We still want to offer algebra, so that group of kids is going to have to remain as a cohort together. Okay, so we will be probably reaching out to our fifth grade teachers to give us an idea, because we don't want, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise with our ELD students, because especially at Ray Berrain, we have such a large population of ELD kids. But on the positive note, the state has let us integrate students this year, so we are going to be able to mix them in with their general ed peers. Therefore, it's going to really help us have those mixed ability groups that will lend itself to this cohort model.
When you mentioned that there would be one classroom open at, during the switching or something, will that be sanitized then, or how would that work?
Yes, so actually what we were thinking is utilizing the cafeteria for that, because then that way we can only have one student sitting per table, and we can remain with the social distancing. That's something up in the air. Elementary, I can see a lot more parents utilizing that feature. Middle school, high school, because they are older, and a lot of them can stay home, without direct supervision from their parents or guardians. So that's going to be something that right now we have designated one room, the cafeteria, which is a very large space. But as needed, if we need additional rooms, because maybe we do have more students than expected, then we will make arrangements for that at that time.
Thank you.
So just to kind of go back a little, just to reiterate what Mrs. Samaniego said, we really had input from all stakeholders. We had a parent, we had students, we had, of course, teachers, all administrators at the middle school level, and then we also had the privilege of having members from the Chiricahua Clinic. So we had
Members from the what, current what?
the Chiricahua Clinic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So their input was very valuable. Just to let you know that at first I didn't know what to expect. I really thought they were going to say, hey, don't even open schools, that's not best for kids. But really the biggest thing is, like, socially and then emotionally, these kids need to get back into school. They need to get back into some type of routine. Just because a lot of the students that they service as patients in their clinic, they have a lot of concerns for, and that's all I can really say. So I know Mrs. Samaniego asked us, do we prefer online or do we prefer hybrid? I understand the safety and well-being concern of our students and our staff, but part of that safety and well-being is also their social and emotional state. So for that reason, if any way possible, I would recommend to move forward with a hybrid model. All right, we have, our plan is very detailed. I don't know how much. We have arrival and dismissal procedures. We have what the classroom setting would look like. We have resources and materials that will be needed, and I do kind of want to touch base on this one.
And Melissa, I
Yeah.
didn't share that with the board because
Okay.
those are plans that you have.
Okay.
I just wanted the schedule, but go ahead and if you need to share.
Just one thing, I won't go into detail, but something that we are going to need, as much as we were thinking about how we're going to best utilize our support staff, and making sure that, they are going to be best used, especially if kids aren't able to come back to school. But like you guys said, they are going to be a vital part of this reopening. So currently at our both middle schools, we have 2.5 custodians. So we have 2 full-time and a half-time. We are recommending that half-time become full-time, because normally in our school day, we have 1 custodian there during the day. The other one is on a split shift. And then our half is either half-time in the morning shift or in the afternoon shift. But in order to sanitize and to be able to run things smoothly at our schools, we're recommending that we be able to have that extra full-time because we're gonna need that extra person during the day for sanitation purposes. And, I know it's something, but plexiglass is gonna be key for our front offices. I'm not gonna go into all of that because I'm sure we're gonna have another meeting to address that, but basically that is in a very small scale. A lot of, my team was awesome. The teachers, we had 3 teachers on our committee, 4 administrators. We had a parent, a student, and of course the 2 members from the Chiricahua Clinic. So we had stakeholders from all parts of not just our school, but the community. So they were all in favor of the proposed schedule that we have in front of you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Melissa, just quickly, you, first of all, you did well by speaking to a lot of middle school teachers, right? In
Yes.
other words, you got some good input from them.
So once we had this framework of our schedule, our proposal, both of the sites actually met with the entire staff.
And I'm
so-
sure there wasn't total agreement on anything, but
Well, honestly, they were pretty in favor of what we decided. So Ms. Herrera, she did include her classified staff in their meeting, and then of course Ray Brain, I had all my certified staff participate. And I think that once we kind of went over all the details, it kind of eased their stress level about returning to school, because at that time they had no idea what it could possibly look like. And now that they have an idea of what it may look like, and that we're taking every precaution possible to promote the safety and well-being of our staff and students, they seemed a little more confident and a little more comfortable with returning back to school.
we certainly want them to be as comfortable and happy as possible. They're the linemen. We want to
Yes.
make sure that if they're happy, they're going to do a good job. You also just briefly mentioned the ALD students. That's a concern of mine, especially with the prevailing circumstances we have in the district with all these people. But you feel good that at that level that they're going to be, I know that the state's going to let you.
So if I
ahead.
could explain for RBMS, and I think Huber decided to go with the same model. So actually, what we're gonna do, the ELD students will be, because part of it is integrated time, and then part of it is focus time. So focus time meaning that they are not supposed to be mixed. ELD students have to be with ELD students with an ELD teacher that is appropriately certified. So what kind of worked out with this AB schedule, so say that I'm an ELD student and I'm on the A schedule, okay? I would go to my integrated classes, which would in this case be the reading teacher, the regular 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade reading teacher, to receive my integrated time, and then plus, since they're traveling in a cohort, they would be mixed with that group from their first period class to their 6th period class. On the B day, they would be receiving their focus time. Although the state only requires 1 hour, we've actually are recommending a 2-hour block. So they would actually be coming to school for 2 hours on their online day to receive focused ELD instruction. So they actually will be at the site 4 days a week versus just the 2.
But it would be a tragedy if those kids got lost in the shuffle. I mean,
No.
because of everything that's happening. They're definitely one of the highest priorities in the district because we have so many of them.
So that's a benefit with the schedule, because they would be getting that additional instructional time, face-to-face time that they really do need. And something similar will also be as a service for our special education students. Because a lot of times, in order to meet their service minutes, they are pulled out of maybe certain core classes to receive their IEP minutes. Well, with this same model, we could ask them to come on their online day for whatever their minutes on their IEP indicate to receive those services versus being pulled out of their core classes. That way they don't miss out that face-to-face instructional time
Okay.
with their gen ed teacher and with their peers, which is very important for that student population as well.
Okay, and then just quickly, the last thing, the custodians you weren't suggesting that when you said that 2.5, they go full-time, would be an additional half-time person?
It would actually be a full-time because Huber also has 2.5.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so currently, Mr. Brain, I have a custodian that is split between Sarah Marley halftime and RBMS halftime. So they are a full-time employee.
okay.
They just split between
Oh,
two
okay.
schools.
Okay, thank you
Huber-
very much, Melissa. Unless the board members have anything else they want to question? Thank you very much.
All right.
That was great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And the custodian thing will affect three sets of schools. I have, the other one is at Stevenson and Huber, full-time employee, but split between two schools. So Huber or an RBMS only have 2.5, and then Stevenson and Sarah Marley have 1.5. And that's what they're saying, they've already talked to me about. Maybe with the CARES Act money, is hiring a 0.5 so that they each could get another full-time. Joe Carlson is the same way, it's one of our largest schools, and they only have 2.5 as well. So that is something we're gonna definitely have to look at.
Okay.
No decisions yet, but we're gonna definitely have to look
Okay,
at those
go ahead.
positions.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, last but not least, is we have Douglas High School's proposal, and it is a hybrid model with a little variation of an AM and a PM combined, with the AM, A day, B day.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
no.
yes, it is. Never mind. We are a little bit different. And actually, if you remember during fourth quarter, Douglas High School was actually giving grades. And so we kind of learned some things during that time of good things that happened and bad things that happened. One of the things that we noticed probably in April, so maybe a month and a half in, was that the teachers were getting overwhelmed. Not just the students were getting overwhelmed of having 7 classes online. So as we were having discussions throughout fourth quarter, this plan actually started forming back then. What we ended up doing was, for 2 reasons, not to overload the students, not to overload the teachers, but also keep the safety of everyone in place. Having 1,600 students, cutting in half at 750 kids was still an issue for us for social distancing. We did have our committee and we included students. Students, their reply was they preferred an AB, but the only reason they preferred an AB was for the socialization of seeing their friends and being around their friends, but they also understood that this was the safest model for them. And the parents felt the same way. So we broke our students up into 4 groups: an AM session on Monday and Thursday, a PM session on Monday and Thursday, and then it's again on Tuesday and Friday, with Wednesday being the same as the elementary and middle schools. That's kind of how we formulated. We've had some discussions. I want to kind of throw this in. This morning, I was speaking with an administrator from Buena, and we have these conversations about, okay, what are you guys doing? What's going on? The administrator from Buena actually said, can you send us your model We like it. When I was meeting, we've been having meetings with staff the last 3 or 4 days. I was meeting with the administration, and Mr. Ortega said, oh, by the way, Nogales had asked for ours yesterday. So other schools are liking what they're hearing and want to look at our model. So to me, that I put a trademark on it, so they have to pay us. The advisory time, and the reason we had to go 3 periods every day was we have 7 periods. So we're going to go in 6-week stints. First and second with advisory, and advisory will be to help with honors, AP, ELL, those kinds of things, but it's also a time we can kind of get to know, our teachers get to know our kids a little bit better. They are actually, my theory, and the counselors and the teachers, is it's going to be, the advisory kids are going to be students that they already have in their classrooms. But that way they can tell if someone's struggling mentally, socially. We can identify those kids, and we can get them help if needed. And sometimes it's just having that conversation with the student, what's going on, and they're able to talk to somebody. So it would be first, second advisory, the first 6-week period. The second 6-week period would be 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then the third 6th-week period would be 6th, 7th, and advisory again. If you notice, there's no 0 period. We have band 0 period, that would be during advisory. We have been meeting with the teachers by department, because having a Google Hangout with 80-some people doesn't work very well, so we've been meeting individually. Nobody has really opposed the schedule. There's questions, there's concerns about how things, bathrooms, DECA, those types of things. But the schedule itself, they understand, yeah, we're going to focus on the essential standards with the online group, and getting the PPE and computers and everything that we're going to need is probably the primary concern. The other concern is, and I will say from the high school teachers, is the well-being of the staff and students. There's some major concern about health and starting in school with the numbers where we're at right now. Just so you know.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Lindeman.
Can you clarify for me, Group 1, will that be by grade level?
Nope.
Or each Group
So,
1 will be 10th grade? Group 1?
It's not going to be by grade level. What we're going to have to do is probably split it out somewhat like alphabetically, so that we only have 375 to 400 kids on campus, and keep the numbers for classrooms at about 8.
But that's throughout the grades?
That's throughout the
Okay.
grades. That way, every teacher has kids in class all the time. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm still kind of unclear on, say you come in as a freshman, am I put in a freshman Group 1? So you'll have
Right.
four groups of freshmen?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and, right, there will be 4 groups of freshmen, 4
Okay.
groups of sophomores, 4 groups of juniors and seniors.
Okay, very good, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Members of the board, Dr. Gomez, do you have any questions?
Yeah, okay, I kind of, because I'm interested in band, but you said that that would be in the advisory?
That would be during advisory period.
Okay, and so where would that be during the day? Where's the advisory during the day?
It's in classrooms. It's just another class, Dr. Ed.
Okay, but I mean, so it has its own time period?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Ramos or Mr. Sabal, do you have any questions of Mr. Walker, or any comments regarding Ms. Mulcahy's or Melissa Rodriguez's presentation?
Not yet.
Yes, Ray, I just wanted to ask Mr. Walker if he go into a little bit more detail as to the concerns that his
The
staff and
staff.
his teachers have with the social distancing and so forth?
Mr. Ramos, it was teachers that are concerned about not only staff catching the virus, but students catching the virus.
Okay.
Being on campus with students.
So, Mr.
Do you
Walker,
have any suggestions for us?
so
Any ideas as to how we can prevent this?
Their suggestion was to start online, and as our numbers go down and follow the CDC of 14 days of decline, and then reopen.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any questions? We need a motion, right?
Yes.
To approve?
And before we do that, Mr. Burain, so obviously, we're proposing a hybrid model.
Right.
Okay, district-wide DUSD, with obviously the variations that high school has. But I think with the idea in mind that, and I don't know if the board would like to make this decision now or wait. So we've adopted a new start date for kids, a new calendar. We know that face-to-face instruction via the hybrid model will begin August the 17th, okay? That's a hybrid. There is obviously concern, and I heard it from all levels, more so maybe from one level of educators than another, on even starting on a hybrid model. The other, I will just share, I do have I didn't think I had the staff survey results, but I do, and I think these are important.
Sure, whatever you think.
Whether the decision is made today on how we start the school year, or we give it a couple weeks. We have a work study session, could be another option where we are allowing maybe parents to call in and speak their concerns, or staff to call in, but that'll be your decision. So we have our staff survey unanimously had 106 votes. We had about 200 in total, let me see. And this was staff classified and certified personnel that answered the survey. And overwhelmingly, the survey was developed in conjunction with DEA members. The survey was opened for a whole week, and it collected 284 responses. So overwhelmingly, the results show even. 106 prefer a hybrid model, 106 prefer to start the school year online. The concerns are overwhelmingly around safety, that from all areas, from staff being safe and the students being safe. Is DUSD prepared with all the PPE equipment and the sanitation resources that we need in order to start? And I think that is their overwhelmingly, concern right now. Let's see. The other concern is, whether we would be required to make up the instructional time if we had to push back the date of the calendar. So we took input from even this survey in order to create our calendar. They did. There was a lot of staff that said cancel fall break or spring break, extend the school year, and we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to extend the school year. They did support the 2-1-2 calendar unanimously. That was at 81%. We do have some staff that is concerned about the child care of their own children, being that they're going to have to be, fully working, and that was at 25% of our staff was concerned with child care. Then we have a question on, would you be willing to wear a mask? And that was at 87%. Yes, we'd be willing. They thought that both 80% thought that both students and staff should wear masks. They believed everybody at all grade levels should wear masks. That was unanimously. And then there was about 76% concerned with how we will keep our facilities clean and sanitized. So that was a 76% concern. Are you concerned about the quality of instruction if we have to return to school using a hybrid model or 100% distance learning? And that was at 88%. And that has been a concern. You know, how can we make sure that we do the best we can at instructing either hybrid or an online? We know that when school closed, we weren't prepared. You know, nobody was prepared. And if you're a district that is a one-to-one district and has technology devices for every single one of your kids, you're in better shape than the rest of us. So we know that what we did was the best that we could with what we had. So there is a concern. Obviously, you heard it from the elementary group that while high school kids and maybe middle school kids can fully function at an online program, there is a concern for the elementary. You know, there is a concern for parents that are working parents that if we were to go strictly online, what do we do with our kids? They've been doing it, you know, all this time. And then, let me see. Okay, that was good. Okay, for parapros. Then, I think that was pretty much all the main concerns. The mask, they feel that we should be taking temperature checks and requiring mask, and concern with the instruction. But the one area that was equal in responses was 106 want to start hybrid, and 106 think that we should start online only at the very beginning. So some concerns with, and it's per the executive order that was issued last week, okay? If we begin hybrid, so you can wrap your brain around what a day's gonna look like for any given teacher is, on A days, I'll have one group of kids. But I'm also gonna have the other half of my kids online, right, for their distance learning. And then the next day, I'm gonna see that group of kids, and my group A will be at home. With the executive order, it is giving parents the flexibility to stay as a DUSD, to keep their kids at DUSD, but choose to keep them online, strictly online. So I may have my A and B groups, but then I may also have 10 of my students that are strictly online. So I'm managing, in a sense, 3 groups, all at once, and it's only one of me. The executive order from last week says if we open up and if we continue with the hybrid model, we have to have our buildings physically open every day of the week for those parents who don't have a place for their children on either their B day or on the Wednesday online. So technically, we may have children coming to us 5 days a week. Now, they won't be in the regular classroom with their teacher, because if I already have a class of 12 kids, and that is what allows me to have social distancing, and I have 5 of mine coming to school on their distance learning day and on Wednesday, every school is going to have a classroom or spaces where there's going to be desk, there's going to be resources, and there's going to be somebody to be with those kids. So that's the challenge of the hybrid model, and under the last week's executive order. The new executive order waives that requirement only if we were to begin online on August the 6th. So the executive order from yesterday says that no face-to-face instruction will happen at any school until the 17th, right? That's what it says now. But if you choose to start on your normal start date, it may be distance learning. So from August the 4th through August the 17th, we could have done online. We wouldn't be required to open up our buildings physically for just those days. But once the hybrid starts, then you have to have a place for kids to go 5 days a week. So that is a different challenge. As a teacher, you may be dealing with 3 sets of kids. Like you said, it's going to be very tough for teachers to teach in this way. And at the high school level, there is, I think for the most part, online. Let's not go into hybrid. How are we doing this? We can't make sure and guarantee that every student and staff will be safe. For elementary, we know that online is a struggle, it's a challenge. We don't have the one-to-one device, the socialization, the contact with children, and teaching kids to do things online is difficult. For middle school, we have one school who we are concerned about, if it's strictly online. We feel that we may lose more kids, while the other school may have a little bit more buy-in from the kids. So today with the numbers of our COVID cases here in Douglas, we know that I think we are high. Are we still number one in Cochise County?
Yes,
Yes.
over 50%.
Over 50% of cases. And I am a believer that, and I've said it in my Friday communications, children need to be in school. But we also need to be responsible and think what is in the best interest of not only kids and staff. And so we could move forward with the plan of hybrid and give it a couple weeks to see where things are at, or the board can give us direction and make a decision. School's not going to start till August 17th, so we do have some time, or make the decision now, whether it's to start online, and then quarter two, we would start with the hybrid, or start with hybrid, and if things get worse in the next few weeks, then the decision would be to start fully online.
We
So
go
it's
with the
just
best,
some
we're going to
challenges.
go with the best information we have now.
Mhm.
Because of the circumstances, especially statewide, not only Douglas, but statewide, we could hear something different Friday, and the governor could come out with another executive order. So it would be my recommendation that we go with your recommendation now, and if that were to happen, the board's always available to come back and make whatever adjustments we need to make at that time. I think it's important that the community understands that this board is charged with a very, very major responsibility, and especially when we look at the health and safety of children. But we also have to look at the safety and health of our staff. And to be honest with you, I'm really apprehensive about starting school. Just from what I see and I read, and not only all of the confusion coming from the state regarding the funding and the mandates and all of those things that ASBA puts out and come out of the legislature and the governor's office. But, I have to say in the same breath, though, I think we're moving diligently, and I think we're doing what we have to do to address it. And, I've said it before, and when you look at the presentation of the people that made those presentations this morning, this district is blessed with some good administration. And I've said it before that Anna is fortunate to have the staff she has working for her. I, for over 8 years, oversaw every school district in the state, so to speak. And I was involved with every district in the state, especially when they had a crisis, whether it be financial, educational, whatever it might be, school boards, whatever. And what I found when I involved myself was that the main reason for crises in schools is leadership, basically the leadership of the district. And when I say the district, I mean all the way down the line, every echelon. And when you look at people like we have here today that made these presentations, we are extremely fortunate to have these people. That's a good plan they put together, and I think we're on the right track. And Anna, I think with your leadership, and as I said, it was always leadership that was generally the problem. I think we're well on our way with the best information we have, we move forward. So I think that we entertain a motion to, or do we have it on the floor? We need the motion.
No, you don't.
We need a motion.
To approve the recommendation because it's the best information we have now, and that we move forward. And then hopefully we don't have any problems, and if we do, then we can look beyond the administration and maybe divine intervention. And I think that's what, I'm telling you, we're in some tough times here. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation. And of course, if we need to come back again because of something happened again at the state level, then we come back. And I think you feel comfortable with that, Anna, and I think you people have made the recommendations. You all feel comfortable with doing that? And thank you guys so much, and I really mean that.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Ramos.
Mr. President,
Yes.
yes, if we could just go over the motion again, so I can hear it again, please.
Well, we haven't had it yet. We haven't had the motion yet.
No, yeah, but you're going in the route that the one that Superintendent Samaniego has authorized. So then if we're going to do it, you're going to read it out again, right?
Yeah, Ms. Samaniego, go ahead and just what the
So for-
recommendation is, and then we'll go just hitchhike on that statement by her, and that'll be the motion.
So for my clarification, as I said, we have, what we're proposing to you for approval is a hybrid model, okay, to begin school on August the 17th with students. What I wanted, and I want clarification because I think my admin team wants clarification too, is to move forward with our plans to begin school with a hybrid model, and if need be, we reevaluate that situation and make a decision in the couple weeks to come? Or is it we're adopting a hybrid model now, regardless, because we're going to go into hybrid at some point, but start school online? That's what I wanted, that discussion. I don't know if board members have any other thoughts or discussions on that.
Well, I really think that,
Because
we do have a month.
You want to start online at the beginning and then go into a hybrid later on. Am I
Right.
correct?
No.
That's an option, Mr. Ramos. The option would be to start online and move forward with a hybrid model Q2, or adopt this, hopefully the board will approve the hybrid model regardless, and allow us to move forward with the plans to start hybrid, okay? Move forward with our plans, because we have a lot of work that's still pending in drafting our school plans to start hybrid. And if the situation worsens here in Douglas within the next few weeks, we can make that decision because I think we need to inform our parents ahead of time, inform our staff ahead of time, so that we're all prepared. The concern with the online, obviously, is the working parents. And my own leadership team already voiced their concerns if they, both their wife and them work in the district, for example, and so they have little ones at home. So that's why I said I don't know if the board would feel positive and okay with adopting the hybrid model and then coming back in a couple weeks, or making the decision today based on the information
well,
I
I think the
provided.
board would feel comfortable with your recommendation. What's your recommendation?
Okay. So my recommendation would be to adopt the hybrid model and allow me to assess the situation in a couple weeks. And then if we need to start online, then we start online make the decision mid-July.
Entertain a motion to do that.
I'll move to approve that.
Well, Mr. Lindeman was already speaking, so were you making a
Yes,
motion?
I'll move to approve the
Okay, a motion
recommendation.
by Mr. Lindeman, second
I second.
by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Mr. Soto.
I have something that I really want
Go
to say,
ahead.
because I really feel strongly about this.
Go ahead.
I don't think that we can start online because nothing is going to be taught. It's a very, very poor way to teach online. The teachers aren't ready to be able to spend a lot of time online for their kids. That's why I'm going for the hybrid model. When Alma says that we have a 50% increase in cases, well, does that mean 50% of Douglas? No, that means that if we had 1,000 cases in Douglas, now we have 2,000 cases. But that's not 50% of Douglas. Then the other thing is that what is the demographics of those infections? And how did they come about by knowing that there was that 50% more infections? Was it by testing, or was it by people going to the doctor, or whatever? So I think a lot of that information, just to show you, I went to Tractor Supply the other day, and this guy was talking to me about opening the schools. And he says, do you know that 7 out of 10 people in Douglas are positive? Well, that's not right. That's 70% of the population of Douglas. That's not right. That's misinformation. So we have to have the right information of who, what are the demographics? Are they little kids? Are they in-betweeners, like 30 to 50, or are the people over 50? That's what we have to think about. And we have to be very, very strong that once we do our model for sterilizing and for keeping safe, that we follow it. That's my thought.
Yes.
No, it's good points, and I think, and I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna say hopefully, but I know that you've taken all of those things into consideration. And,
Yes, it's,
I mean, those are things that you're bombarded with every day. that you
Every
have to
day,
consider every day.
and I know the concern is out there. Of course, there's parents that are saying, unless DUSD can guarantee that my child will not be sick, we can't, right? We know we can't. Nobody can. You can go to a store and that store can't guarantee you're not going to get sick. And so, our admin team, as you said, is phenomenal, and I am very grateful for the team that I have because, and I will say that even the admin team has been taking input from various stakeholders. I mean, they're not making decisions on their own because they know this decision is going to affect their staff, and there is a wide concern about their health. Our staff is concerned. Our elementary staff is concerned. Sometimes with our elementary staff, is the sentiment or the stress is very different from the high school staff. And so we're all taking feedback. The decision one way or the other is not easy to make, because while you make the decision to start online, and if we need to start online because we are putting more kids and more staff at risk, we will. But then you affect the instruction, right? You affect the socialization. You affect their well-being. If we start hybrid, are we ready? Are we going to keep everybody safe? And we, and Randy will say, and I think everybody will agree, we're not going to please everybody. This is not going to make everybody happy, but we need to make the best decision with what we have right now. We still have a month and a half before school starts, and hopefully we can start in a hybrid model. I don't think any administrator here or those that are out there working right now will say that we shouldn't educate kids and that online is the best thing for us, because we know that it's not. But we'll do what we need to do to keep everybody.
Well, the
healthy
trend,
and safe.
the trend right now is
Yes.
worsening.
Yes, and I am also apprehensive, like you, Mr. Bahrain. I think my team is too. So there's mixed emotions, mixed feelings, but with what we have now, I feel confident at least that we can move forward with planning around a hybrid model and also around an online model, if we need to go that direction.
Yes, Mr. President, I just wanted to mention, says Mr. Ramos, that my biggest concerns was our elementary level, especially from kindergarten to third grade. These children it would be very, very difficult, and I hope parents understand this, very difficult for them to look online. And that was my concern.
Mm-hmm.
The younger kids in elementary are going to have a tremendous problem if we go online, especially if they haven't got any supervision to help them. And I am glad we're going to start with a hybrid. If we vote on it right now and it passes, the hybrid choice that you presented to us. And I just wanted to mention, we have to remember our elementary kids is the most important time in their learning. So when they get to high school, they're not behind. That's what I just wanted to say.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Any further discussion by members of the board? Mr. Linder?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that by planning for the hybrid model, at least we have something in place. You know, the future is going to be the future, and we can't
Control that right
control
now.
that. So, but we can say, we're definitely going to do this, and we're planned for the best. If it changes, it changes. But right now, something solid. Thank you.
Okay, the teachers, and I know I'm trite, but I can't sympathize anymore for teachers. This is going to be a tremendous effort for them, tremendous. Not only teaching, as a former teacher, I wouldn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to have any part of this, to be honest with you, especially if you're regimented and you're structured and you know what you want to do, and then you have to go here. I'm afraid that the learning process is going to be completely deteriorate, but we've got to do the best we can with what we got. So with that, we have a motion on the floor, right? So that we don't get into further discussion, I want to quickly ask Mr. Soto, before he falls asleep over there. They're going to start calling you Sleepy Joe Biden. Well, you're
Not that old.
And I didn't mean to politicize this at all. That was the first name, unless it was Ichabod Crane and Sleepy Hollow. But are you at all concerned about the structure with the attendance and the reporting and the finances? I mean, do you have any concerns? And I basically see what you see, and there's uncertainty there too, and that's the scary part. But members of the board, we have to make sure we've got money, but it's going to affect the whole state. So I'm sure that they'll make provisions somewhere along the way. That's why the legislature has to constantly be involved. But are you, just from our standpoint, our district, are you concerned about the reporting? I'm sure you're working with Mene. She's looking at all of the different applications and the different formulas that are being formulated, correct?
Correct.
So how are you feeling about it, just quickly?
Not at all concerned. Again, yeah, we're working closely with the New Student Center about enrollment. And if enrollment changes, of course, that's our funding. And if we need to make changes, we'll make changes. But at this point, there's nothing to be concerned about. We're looking at obviously at the class sizes and the enrollment at the different grade levels. But not at all concerned about the funding. Again, we haven't heard anything from the state saying there's cuts coming or anything. They're still saying that the funding is coming, that it's allocated, and it's good to go. But again, that might change from 1 week to another. But as of this exact moment, I mean, there's no concerns about funding.
Okay, and then speaking of enrollment, what about open enrollment? What are you doing with open enrollment?
So I'm going to be meeting with Mene. A lot of communication from my admin team is to really look at the open enrollment and try to even out the schools so that we are able to keep 10 to 12 kids. Now, that doesn't only mean open enrollment situations, but let's say, for example, Ms. Moen said, if I have 2 fourth grade classrooms and they're already at 28 each, for example, but they're Clausen boundary students, could we make the exception for this year and say, I cannot take any more? So even though you belong to Clausen, then you're going to have to go to Sarah Marley to even out and make the small class sizes possible with the AB schedule. Because if we keep doing what we're doing and just saying, okay, well, it's a Clausen student, we're at 34, we're at 35, 3 more came in for 4th grade, then that puts them at a disadvantage when then Sarah Marley may have only, certain kids. That would require some kind of a policy change, Mr. Bahrain, because it says, kids will go to their boundary school. The open enrollment is only when they want to go to another school. So some of the concern is the number of parents requesting to go to a different school, but it does benefit, for example, Ray Bahrain, 6th grade, it benefits them to have the number of kids wanting to go to Huber. So we're looking at that. For another school, what may be at a disadvantage is the number of kids that are their boundary kids. So we'll be looking at that with Mena extensively. I have her working on possible, along with the admin team. Our next steps are to put together our distance learning plan, because we're going to have to submit something to ADE regarding our distance learning plan. So by the last week's executive order, our distance learning, our hybrid plan, whether it's online, fully online or not, will be accepted as an Arizona online instruction program. So we know that. Then we have to come up with our attendance protocols. How are we going to take attendance and make sure that that ADM is being counted when my child is at home doing distance learning on that B day or on that Wednesday? So those plans still have to be developed, because we have to be very creative in how we're going to take attendance. So there's already ideas that we're playing around, and we're going to finalize those details, because we will have to submit something to ADE.
Okay, the boundary committee fell by the wayside because of all of this happened, and we're going to have to look at,
Yes.
revisit that again. And then, I personally have expressed before that I think that in the new student center that there should be 3 levels there. There's always an appeal process, should be the front desk, the middle, and that the final decision on the open enrollment should be made there by the people that actually understand and have all of the statistics in front of them, instead of politicizing it and bringing it to this office and then making a decision based on who you know and who you don't know. So anyway, that's another discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3, adjournment. Again, thank all you guys for the magnificent job you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All of you working with Anna. We're very, very fortunate to have people like you guys working for us. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second by Dr. Gomez. All in favor?
Aye.
Stand adjourned.
Aye.